Everybody. Welcome to week 8, the last week of this class for intro to sociology, then also the last week of the winter semester, which is, I just feel like this time is always so weird thinking of like we're still in winter semester and like it's clearly spring outside. It's like 75 degrees today, and it's just always a weird time. I saw most of you did the race essay assignment. I'm looking forward to reading those. There were a few people, 5 to be exact, that did not turn it in, and I will bug you because it's a pretty big part of your grade, so I would like to see that get turned in. Um, so before jumping into this week's material, just I want to briefly go over like what to expect. Now, I think so. I have this set up for May 10th as a due date, Mother's Day, so that's Sunday. So that must mean I can turn in your grades by like Wednesday or something. So what I typically try to do is like gonna have all this stuff done, gonna get all my other grading done for the class. I want to get everything settled and then leave the grades open for like a day so that you all can go look at it, make sure it looks right. If you have any problems, send me a message. It's much easier to correct any issues with grading now than to do it later after grades have been submitted and they've been rolled into your transcripts. So please reach out if anything is like not looking right or whatever. There's a few extra credit opportunities. There was back in week 6, I posted. That's back here. A couple extra credit. So in here, there's these 2 extra credit opportunities that you can read this article. No, watch one of these movies. I used to have an article. I must have gotten rid of it. So one of these films. Oh yeah, I put in the generation like instead of the article, which I think is still. It's like from 2014, I think, which feels ancient at this point, but it's still so relevant. It's about social media, corporate manipulation. I think it's very, very relevant, and I think I would encourage you all to watch it because it's like I think about it all the time about the way that these social media companies are manipulating our lives. I'm sure you all probably have just crossed your mind too at some point. Um, yeah, I think that's everything for the class business. uh, Quick little plug, I'm teaching social problems in the second half of the summer semester. So it's starts in like I don't know, I think like mid-June or something like that. And it's a 3 credit hour class. It's more focused on individual social problems as opposed to the broader sociological concepts like this class. So it's like there's a module on like gun control, abortion, like all that kind of stuff. And again, the class is not ideological. I feel like it's just so funny teaching sociology right now because everything is so charged and so like it's like the conservative right wing people picked up a rock and discovered all these things that have been controversial for a long time, like again, gun control, abortion, like all this kind of stuff. But like we've been thinking about this stuff for a very long time and teaching on it. And the point of this course is, or point of social problems, is to think about these topics from a sociological perspective, to understand the range of arguments and to encourage critical thinking. It's not about like you need to think X, Y, or Z way about this topic. It's more about here are the different um, arguments, if you will, or different understandings of these different things, and this is how people make a compromise in society, because that's kind of the point. If I was to summarize social problems course, the whole point is understanding how do are we not engaged in civil war all the time basically over these topics, because they're so big, they're like such big topics, and how do we make compromise, and how do people find compromise on these topics. So anyway, if that sounds interesting to you, I would encourage you to take that class. It's structured the way I teach is structured very similar to this class. It's an online course, asynchronous. I have weekly check-in videos. quizzes, not quiz questions, essays, very kind of standard fare. So anyway, for this week's class, this final week's class is on social movements and social change. This is a topic very near and dear to me as someone that has been involved in a lot of grassroots activism in the city of Detroit. I was very involved in the Occupy movement when I was in grad school, and then in the bankruptcy proceedings, I was very involved with like all the stuff going on around the Detroit bankruptcy. Um, Eventually, I think I mentioned a long time ago in this class probably that I did my PhD dissertation on tax foreclosure in the city of Detroit and its relationship to demolitions and the elimination of neighborhoods and kind of like the destruction of memory lane, if you will, for many people. That is a topic that I arrived at from the activism around the bankruptcy because that's really when tax foreclosure became a crisis in the city of Detroit. And that's where I started to see that. I was like getting through grad school, thinking about what I wanted to do for my topic. I knew I wanted to do something very Detroit focused because there was like so many things going on. There was like the water shutoffs, the street light stuff. I don't know if you all remember, but more than half the city just didn't have streetlights. Like you drive around. I remember I lived in Boston Edison at the time, and off like Woodward in Chicago, basically, or Woodward and Grand Boulevard, if you're not familiar with those side roads. And I'd ride around in my neighborhood. I would like I would ride my bike to Hamtramck because it was like pretty close, maybe just like a mile away. There was like there were street lights on Woodward, but that was it. Like I'd ride to like Holbrook, basically the whole way there, and it was total pitch black except for my bike light, and it was like really freaky. It's just really freaky riding around in a major city like that in the pitch black. So anyway, that's been more or less resolved, and through a very complicated process, it all got privatized, and now a private company runs our streetlights in the city of Detroit. Don't love that. But anyway, like I said, I arrived at my topic on tax foreclosure through the activism that came out of the bankruptcy, because it was sort of all happening around that same time. And, I felt like a very small fish in this big pond, so to speak, in Detroit with activism. There's a long historical movement in Detroit for working people and for particularly for black working people in the city, for dignity, for fair housing, for jobs, for you name it, just like all the regular stuff that people care about. And it's funny to me when I feel like when people that aren't really familiar with like the black power movements or like really understand what happened during like the Great Migration and like the whatever 1920s 1930s, where a lot of black folks came up from the South and came up to Michigan, Detroit, Toledo, like all these in former industrial cities. They left because many of them were like sharecroppers, or they were descendants of slaves and didn't have a very good quality of life living in the South, didn't have many opportunities available to them. Many of them came up north looking for jobs, opportunity, safe places to raise their families. Same reason my family left Syria and came here to Michigan too. And so I feel like I have always felt a lot of solidarity with black folks and with the struggles that a lot of black families have faced, because again, it's exactly the same thing. It's like the same reason why my parents left Syria. It's the same reason why a lot of white folks left from the South too and came up to like, it's funny when people talk about like Taylor Tucky and all that kind of stuff, like downriver. The reason you have so many people from the South that came up and ended up going downriver is because of the same reasons. They left Alabama, Kentucky, Louisiana, all these places, coming up here, going to the South, coming up here to work for Ford, work for the industrial centers, work for all the things connected to the auto industry, looking for jobs, looking for a good place to raise their kids, looking for more land, just all the same basic stuff. And it's just it's just so obvious. I feel like that this is what people care about. People care about how expensive it is to raise your family. Can you grow? Can you have a good, dignified quality of life? And I feel like these are just the same struggles, just generation after generation. So I think in this module, this is to say that I think you'll see this material. I feel like is like a very bird's eye view of like social movements and why they are like why some social movements are successful and why others are not. I included some material about Black Lives Matter and Me Too. Kind of put aside your personal opinions about these movements. The reason I wanted to include them is because they are successful online social movements. And I do think that they have a lot to contribute in terms of like, um, their merits of like what they do have to say about social problems of what's going on in society. But I think more importantly, they also kind of show how does a movement go from online into real world. Like I think you could make the same argument about the Occupy movement back in the day, back in like the early 2010s, but it was different, and I could go on a whole sort of rant about why it was different. But I think Black Lives Matter, Me Too in particular, are two movements that started online and moved into IRL, as we would say, and have kind of stayed there. And we all saw what happened during the pandemic with Black Lives Matter, and a little earlier, and I kind of ongoing to some extent with Me Too and how they sort of changed society in a lot of ways. So I included this film also that's a little bit old now. I'm trying to think when this came out, this movie about Grace Lee Boggs. I feel like it came out in probably like 2016, 2018, 20, yeah, something like that. It's great. It's still great. Grace Lee Boggs is a Detroit icon, and she was a fixture in the Detroit social justice community. I had the pleasure of having met Grace a few times and working with her on some things, some organizing things, like I said, related to the bankruptcy. She was an incredible person. She died after this film was released. So she passed away probably in like 2018. So this film must have come out in like 2015 or 14 or something like that. They had her 100th birthday party at the African American museum on Warren over by Wayne State's campus. And I remember going to it. She's a Chinese American woman too, and that's just like how embedded she was in the black community. And again, I think that like if you're in Detroit, it's like I think like the overriding thing that you realize is like the solidarity movement with the struggle for African Americans is the struggle for all of us. And it's like one of these kind of rising tides raises all ships kind of things. Like we need to advocate and find solidarity with everybody here. And this is a majority black city. And so everything is going to be kind of colored through that lens. So anyway, I would really encourage you to watch that film. It's great. It covers a lot of the history of things that happened here in Detroit. And it's just like I said, it's just great. Grace Lee Boggs was such a national treasure, and she lived a very long life. It's sad that she passed away, but like I said, she was over 100 years old. I mean, she got to, we would all be so lucky to live that long in our life. And yeah, I hope you find this material interesting. I hope you found this class interesting. This is the last one of these videos I'm going to be recording. Hope people are actually watching these videos. I don't know if any. I know I see my views on the YouTube page. It's not very good. It's not. It's kind of grim. But hey, I mean, I feel like this is still important, and it makes me feel like I'm connected to you guys in some way and getting to talk about this class material. So anyway, if you have any questions about anything in this week, anything related to the class, anything related to college in general, I am very good at college. I've gone through, my undergrad, bachelor's, PhD, and I'm considering going to law school against better judgment. And my wife might kill me, but I think I may end up going to law school too. Anyway, I'm always happy to chat about any of these topics. from the class, or like I said about like college, to, like what any of that kind of stuff. I'm happy to have that chat with you all. So anyway, I hope you all have a great week. It's supposed to be really nice today. I hope you're able to get outside and go do some fun things. And I will talk to you soon. I'll see you later. Bye.